It's Taiwan's Pride weekend, but this year pandemic restrictions forced Asia's largest LGBT parade online. Taiwan's still the only country in the region where same-sex couples can legally marry. We take a look at marriage inequality across Asia. And officials at fault for a deadly fire in Kaohsiung that killed 46 people earlier this month. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. For Taiwan's LGBT community, this is the biggest weekend of the year. It's the annual Pride Festival, but it might look a little different. Most of the events are taking place online due to the pandemic. Andrew Ryan has the story.
Taiwan's weekend of Pride celebrations is underway. Last year, Taiwan was one of the few places in the world to hold in-person events and an actual parade. That's due to the nation's pandemic prevention success. But this year, the event looks a little different. After an outbreak of COVID in Taiwan earlier this year, Pride organizers moved the event online. And even though Taiwan is back to 0 daily COVID cases, it was too late for organizers to reverse course. Events kicked off on Friday night with the 3rd annual Taiwan Trans March. The online event featured a walking tour of Ximending, a bustling queer-friendly district in Taipei. There were also interviews with transgender people and their allies. And this year's theme, Beyond Biases, Online Together.
So the message we would like to convey is that transgender people have to constantly show themselves and to remind the society to recognize their existence. And by marching together, transgender individuals from every corner of our society will witness support and find strength.
The event also featured interviews highlighting challenges faced by the transgender community in Taiwan. The theme for the main Pride event on Saturday afternoon is I Love Being Out. Instead of parade floats and marching people, there are performances and discussions of issues like what it means to be gay-friendly or gender-friendly. But planners say organizing the online event brought its own difficulties.
我觉得目前遇到的一个状况就是可能会有很多人认为在同志婚姻通过之后台湾的同志的社群好像就没有什么在被重视的议题了，但其实并不是这样子的。
After working for years to encourage the LGBT community to come out of the closet, it's a tall order to ask people to stay at home. But for organizers in Taiwan, the parade must go on. And by the looks of it, although it's taking place indoors, you can't keep that pride inside. Alex Chen, James Chater, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is the only country in Asia where same-sex marriage is legal. When a legalization bill passed in 2019, there were high hopes other countries in the region would follow suit, but that has not yet happened. So how are other Asian nations faring in the fight for marriage equality? James Chater has this report.
It's been over 2 years since this joyous day for same-sex couples in Taiwan. In May 2019, Taiwan became the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. But to date, it remains the only country in Asia to have passed the landmark legislation. So how's it going in other Asian nations? In this report, we take the temperature on 4 other countries' progress toward full marriage equality. First up is Japan, where the public and government are at odds. 80% of the public support legalization, but a conservative government means legalization remains unlikely. In March this year, a court in Sapporo made a landmark ruling that a ban on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. The ruling argued that sexuality is not a choice, and therefore it is discriminatory to ban same-sex marriage. The ruling came amid a groundswell of support for marriage equality in Japan. A recent poll found 80% of Japanese support legalization. And hopes grew further this year when LDP leadership hopeful Taro Kono said he would support legalization.
かなり確実に進んできていることの一個の表れだと思っていて、これまで総裁選で同性婚についてこんな明確にイシュー化されたり、あるいはその報道されたりってことは一切なかったと思うんですよね。考えてもいなかった。それはご本人たちもそうだし、その国民としてもそうだし。
But Kono lost out to Fumio Kishida, who was ushered into power by an influential bloc of conservative lawmakers. He's previously said he has not fully accepted marriage equality, and that's left many in Japan pessimistic about prospects for legalization. Next is Vietnam, where progress has stalled. A ban on same-sex marriage was lifted in 2015, but marriages are still not legally recognized. Back in 2013, Vietnam made headlines after it lifted a ban on same-sex marriage. That led many to believe it would become the first Asian country to make marriage equality a reality, but that never happened. After the ban was lifted in 2015, a peculiar situation emerged. Same-sex marriages were allowed to take place, but they were neither recognized nor protected by the state. Progress has since stalled. As a result, same-sex couples still cannot get legally married or adopt children. Thailand. The situation is optimistic but with setbacks. A same-sex unions bill was passed in 2020, but it stopped short of calling them marriages. Thailand has an LGBT-friendly reputation, but same-sex marriage remains elusive. Hopes for legalization have focused on a civil partnership bill, which has been bogged down in bureaucracy since it was first proposed in 2018.
ความหวังของผมนี่มีอยู่แล้วครับแต่ก็เราก็ต้องรอลุ้นอีกทีถ้าเกิดว่าได้เราก็จะทำตามฝันของเราเพราะว่าผมกับน้องเขาก็ฝันว่าอยากแต่งงานจริงๆจังๆโดยมีใบทะเบียนคู่ชีวิต
3 years later, the bill has still not gone into effect. The final vote has been delayed multiple times, most recently in late September. Activists say no reason was given for that delay. For now, much like in Vietnam, same-sex weddings can and do take place in Thailand, but they have no legal basis. In China, hopes are dimming. A government acknowledgement of same-sex marriage led to no action, and there's been a recent crackdown on sexual minorities. In late 2019, it looked as though Beijing might move beyond its three no's policy towards homosexuality. No approval, no disapproval, and no promotion. In December of that year, China's National People's Congress acknowledged letters circulating on Chinese social media calling for marriage equality. But it didn't go beyond a simple acknowledgement. Since then, China has moved to ban effeminate men from appearing on television. LGBT activists in China say the darkening atmosphere means that marriage equality remains a distant prospect for the world's largest queer community. The fight for marriage equality goes on. 2 years after celebrations in Taiwan, conservative governments and bureaucratic hurdles are blocking progress in other countries. That means it may be a while yet until the law recognizes every couple in Asia walking proudly down the aisle. Patrick Chen and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Authorities in Kaohsiung have released a report on the cause of a deadly fire that killed 46 people at a Chengzhongcheng building in Kaohsiung earlier this month. City officials stand with their heads bowed at a press conference. A panel of investigators has found that 2 city agencies failed to take action that could have prevented the fire. The report said that when the Fire Bureau wasn't able to conduct regular safety checks on a building last year due to the lack of a management committee and objections from some residents, they should have sought help from police. The Public Works Bureau was also found to be negligent. When the Fire Bureau asked them in June to follow up on a safety check, they never sent anyone to the building. The heads of both bureaus resigned earlier this week. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu has spoken at a conference in Rome hosted by the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China. Speaking via video link from Brussels, Wu said that Taiwan stands on the front line of a global confrontation between democracy and authoritarianism. He said that freedom-loving countries should look after one another and pointed to the European Parliament's landslide vote to strengthen ties with Taiwan as a milestone in efforts to stand up to the authoritarian challenge. Lawmakers from several countries and the European Parliament are in the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China and are pushing their governments to take a firmer stance against China. Taiwan is known as a beacon of LGBT rights in Asia, but while same-sex couples can marry, they still cannot adopt children. On Friday, an LGBT family rights group called on Taiwan's government to amend the law to allow same-sex couples to adopt. At the moment, some couples put off getting married, so one of the partners can legally adopt a child. The press conference hosted by the Taiwan LGBT Family Rights Advocacy was attended by legislators who support a change in the law, including Freddie Lim.
如果说已经是可以客观的感受到他们家庭之间、亲子之间的一个羁绊，一个互相扶持，未来可以一起生活的一种感受的时候，你却是因为他的这个双亲的这个是同性或异性而剥夺他们组成这个跟小孩子组成家庭的这个可能性，我觉得这完全就是歧视。
To find out more about this, TaiwanPlus spoke to Miao Miao and Wei Wei, a same-sex couple from Kaohsiung. They have been together for 16 years and married last year, but the process wasn't easy. Our reporter James Chater began by asking what social pressure they felt before the process had even begun.
其实，我们在决定要收养之前，其实在心里面犹豫了非常久。对，因为我们两个算是都有一点完美主义或自我要求嘛，其实我们都很担心说没办法当一个好父亲。那我觉得其实有一个部分呢也受到社会环境的影响，因为其实那些就是反对同志的人，其实有一些论述是在讲说，他们认为说同志不能够当家长，不能够当一个好家长。那其实这些论述呢或多或少都影响着我们这样子，对啊，所以我们其实在收养之前就是会内心有非常多的犹豫。
And after same-sex legalization was passed, how did the lack of amendment to adoption policy impact your lives?
原本当初我们在跑流程的时候，因为视线已经过了嘛，所以我们原本并不知道说，我们如果原本都是从那个就是两个人一起要共同收养这个孩子的这个流程，后来会变成就是只能单身的收养，所以我们就在这个很辛苦的时间，当大家都在结婚的时候，我们就变成不能去结婚。对，那其实我觉得要社工去开口说我们其实是不能结婚的，我觉得对社工也是非常残忍的事情。对，然后我们原本预期可以结婚，变成是我们得等待，然后这段时间我们都会想，我们是3个陌生人住在一起，在法院裁定之前，就变成我们3个都没有法律上的关系，然后我们生活在一起这样，对，觉得很荒谬。但是因为这个法律定成这个样子，就变成是只有我跟他有亲子关系，那喵是没有的，所以只有我可以请育婴留停，然后喵就不行。对，所以就有延伸了很多的问题，所以我们最后变成是一直要等到应该是说社工就讲说，如果我们在这段时间在裁定之前如果结婚了，那我们就是不合格的家长这样。
And you both have plans to adopt a second child. How does the existing legal framework impact your hopes on this front?
就是我们家是想要收养2个孩子的，所以我们已经办了结婚登记了，所以接下来就会变成是我们要收养第2个孩子的时候，我们到底要不要先离婚？依目前大家的说法就是我们得先离婚，
对，
然后来收养第2个孩子。那我觉得这个也很荒谬啊，就是我们又要回到那个变成是又从夫妇关系要变成没有关系，
透过一些方式让政府看见我们的需求，对啊，所以我们就是要一起去透过那个法律程序让政府知道我们 问题，这个法的问题，我就愿意站出来，因为我觉得不能够因为我们是少数中的少数而牺牲掉我们的权利。对。
Coming up after the break, we take you behind the scenes to meet Taiwanese indigenous drag queens who are telling the haters to sashay away. Stay with us. Welcome back to Taiwan Plus News. U.S. President Joe Biden has met with France's President Macron for the first time since relations soured over a submarine deal between the United States, Britain, and Australia. Biden told his French counterpart that the U.S. had been clumsy over the deal that had angered France because Australia ditched another multi-billion-dollar deal for French submarines. The meeting in Rome comes ahead of the meeting of the G20 Saturday and a key climate conference in Britain on Sunday. Taiwan's annual Pride Parade, usually the largest in Asia, is taking place online. But this year, the push for greater visibility and LGBT rights is about more than just one event. Drag queens from Taiwan's indigenous community are fighting discrimination all year round, 1 week at a time. Rick Glauert has this report.
Saturday night at Taipei's Red House, the heart of the city's LGBT community, and drag queen Villian is getting ready for a performance. Villian is ethnic Bunun and one of a handful of drag queens in Taipei that are battling the double stigma of being both indigenous and LGBT. Indigenous Taiwanese make up just over 2% of the population and for decades have been treated as second-class citizens in their own country. Indigenous communities are often more traditional and conservative than mainstream society. That makes it even harder for LGBT indigenous to come out and live as their true selves.
那时候我们家最大的现在是大舅，就是大舅舅，然后他很高龄了这样子，都在教会工作啊什么的，所以我第一次给他看的时候，他就说一个我觉得很好笑，但是他是有一点开玩笑，但是又有一点不太理解这样子。对我讲，他说你这个是妖女，他是开玩笑的感觉，但是他是看得出来他是有一点不太开心的，对不对？
Taiwan in 2019 made history by becoming the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. Taipei holds the region's largest LGBT pride event, and the country is often described as a beacon of liberalism in Asia.
我觉得变了蛮多的，说实在话，就是尤其这2年，我们这些皇后的粉丝都变得异性恋变很多，就是比例已经有点快超过那个同性恋的比例。
But traditional attitudes take time to change. These drag queens say their performance helped dismantle some of the double stigma they face. Ethnic Taiwan Draggy Boo Boo's father is a retired priest who does not accept homosexuality.
我觉得有很多跟我一样的人，对，所以我觉得，而且搞不好他们的生活、他们的处境又比我更加困难。我很幸运的事情是，至少我们家里面我有妈妈跟我弟弟。 能够了解我在做什么，而且非常支持我在做什么。对我来说，这已经是非常大的解脱了。
As well as sexy performances in the gay bars of Taipei, Draghi Bubu gives talks to students at universities to increase LGBT visibility.
的确，这个变装皇后这样子的表演方式，其实对我来说是非常适合的，能够同时把我所想说的话，同时把我的认同，同时把我身上的特质，那些会被人家所排除的特质，我都能够一起放到我的身上，然后我很能够完全的以一个舒服自在、我很快乐的样子去进行表演。
Taiwan is often heralded as the most LGBT-friendly place in Asia, though it still has a way to go to achieve true equality. But it is brave queens like these, wielding their makeup and fake eyelashes as their armor, that are making the country a more diverse and accepting place. Alex Chen and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus.
Sepak takraw may be the most popular sport you've never heard of. Played by millions of people throughout Southeast Asia, it is now gaining ground in Taiwan. Ken Ning takes you to the junior high school, which swept the nationwide Sepak takraw championships last weekend.
You can kick it, you can throw it, but chances are, unless you're from Southeast Asia, you've never heard of it. Sepak takraw is a sport that is as popular as football in Thailand, Myanmar, Indonesia, and Malaysia. But in Taiwan, it's still finding its feet. It's already an event at the Asian Games, and the organization tasked with promoting Sepak takraw in Taiwan is looking to create a team capable of going for gold.
This sport is still new to Taiwanese, and we believe that it has good chances of winning medals in the future.
Thanks to a government-backed initiative, the country's young athletes are getting a chance to develop their skills. One of the nation's top teams is from Shiling Junior High School in Taipei. But the students face a battle not only on the court, but also off it, as they struggle to raise awareness of the sport.
其实藤球运动在台湾算是一个很新兴的一个运动了，因为毕竟进来的时间很短。那时候你看，没有选手，没有教练，什么都没有，从零开始。
It's been described as volleyball, but for your feet. So how do you play it? I'm at Shiling Junior High School, and their champion Sepak takraw team is going to show me how. Thank you. Hey. For me, it's so hard to just kick the ball in the air without letting the ball onto the ground. It's just so frustrating. But these kids from Shiling Junior High School, they are really nailing it. I sat down with some of the kids to talk about and find out what they think about Sepak takraw. Here's what they told me.
I like Sepak takraw very much. When I graduated from elementary school, I decided to go to Shiling Junior High School because I can play Sepak takraw here.
I think this sport is very cool. It's not easy to control the ball on the ground with your feet, let alone you need to do backflip and kill the ball in the air.
Sepak takraw is a kind of volleyball but kicked with feet. The rules are very similar to volleyball, but the menu is a badminton court, and the basic skill is related to soccer. So you can say it is a combination of volleyball, badminton, and soccer.
The man who coaches these students onto success is a guy that people refer to as the Captain Taiwan of Sepak takraw.
Hello everybody, and hello reporter. I'm Zhang Yuting, and I come from the Taipei. I grew up in the Taipei all long time, and I was first see the Sepak takraw. It was amazing, you know. I see in the Asian game. I remember it's 2002 in the Busan. Yeah. I shocked. I very shocked. Incredible. I can believe body can do, you know. I call it rolling attack.
The first time John watched a Sepak takraw match was at the 2002 Asian Games in Busan, South Korea. He was instantly drawn to the sport. 6 years later, he got in so good that he decided to go pro. He saved up all his money and flew to Thailand to train. And while he was there, he discovered something that inspired him.
那其实就是我们每天跑步的时候，我都会看到他。那其实我就有在心中埋下了一个种子，就是我希望有一天，我要让这个奥会的会旗身上是那种感觉比较深，所以很累，然后身体很酸，他就是会支持着我。
But Jan never made it to the Olympics. Sepak takraw is still not an officially recognized sport of the Games. Although Jan's days of competing at the highest level are behind him, he's now doing all he can to train the next generation of sepak takraw players in Taiwan.
我说，就算教练去递茶水、递毛巾，我都很愿意，因为那就是运动员追求的梦想。不管是奥运也好，或是亚运也好，就是运动员只要站上那个属于自己的舞台，我觉得就是活的就是很有价值。
Last weekend, the efforts of Coach Zhan and his athletes paid off. The Shilin Junior High School boys and girls teams swept the nationwide sepak takraw championships in their age group. Perhaps one day, these students will head to the Asian Games, or if the sport gets recognition, they may even find themselves at the Olympics. Klein Wong, James Rayner, and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Betty Chan. We'll leave you with some pictures of animals in a Czech Republic zoo eating pumpkins to celebrate Halloween. Check out Taiwan Plus News on YouTube and a website for this show and more. Stay safe and see you next time.